Vaporwave, the dawn of the 80s revival, is the name of our next talk, crafted and spoken by Egan Ruane. It gives a look into a new style, born in the modern era, inspired by the ancient, archaic times before writing.
The 1980s, a radical yet important decade in the history of humanity. It's a decade that has brought us many amazing and revolutionary things, such as the first computers and some of the finest music ever written, at least in my opinion. It's a decade that has been sealed in time for over 40 years. But what if I told every single one of you that it was coming back? Coming back, but in a new and futuristic style, using all of those elements from that decade. That new style is called Vaporwave. And if this is the first time you've ever heard of this term, you're not alone. This is the story of a rebirth, or in this case, a resurrection of a beloved decade. So, first of all, what even is Vaporwave? Well, Vaporwave is an artistic and musical style that is heavily inspired by the 1980s. It uses many different elements from this decade, including things like old computer software, VHS cassettes, and even songs from that decade. On the other hand, Vaporwave theme songs each have their own special genre, and this is to simulate the sentimental value of nostalgia. This is what we call an aesthetic. Now, aesthetic genres vary. Some include things like lo-fi, which is slowed down and reverbed remixes of popular 80s songs. And then, of course, there's synthwave, which is a new, original, and more modernized version on the infamous 1980s synth pop trend that was very popular with bands like the Human League and New Order. Some very familiar names there. Now, today, Vaporwave remains primarily popular in places like Japan and certain parts of the US. Now, moving away from the music for a little while, Vaporwave can be used in certain aspects for film. Let me give you an example. At one point, a Vaporwave artist may consider creating a short film or a music video tailored to one of their songs or other creations. Now, these films are made to look like they're running on old equipment, so I'm sorry to tell all the TV guys here that no 4K TVs will be involved with any of these films. Sorry about that, guys. Instead, what they do is they insert effects like VHS static, and even the signature buzzing sound of the static during the quieter parts of the video. Now, let's move on away from the film and let's go back to the music. Certain Vaporwave and new and upcoming synthwave artists have also bought actual synthesizers, would you believe, from the 1980s. Now, these are very popular synthesizers that come from very popular companies. And the crazy thing that they do with these different synthesizers is they record their own songs with these devices. An even crazier aspect is once they record their songs, they burn them onto actual cassette tapes. These cassette tapes are then to be distributed to each listener of the artist's music online. It's absolutely amazing. Now, since Vaporwave is primarily popular in Japan, certain Vaporwave artists like to use the traditional Japanese animated art style called anime in certain parts of the videos. They also like to use the Japanese language as text in the video also. So, with all of these different uses of traditional culture from other nations and places, it's simple and it's super easy for all of us to describe Vaporwave as a simple analogy for multiculturalism. Now, here's the big question. Is Vaporwave itself still going around today? Well, the answer itself, it's divided. Now, in pop culture, the Netflix show Stranger Things has really brought back the 80s to a more modern audience. It's brought back so many different elements from that decade. Now, my sister is a huge fan of the show, but if she was here and she was going to name every single reference of the show from the 80s, we might be here for a little while longer than you thought. So we'll skip that part. But what about the future? What will happen to our legacy? What will our generation become known as? Well, I want you to consider this. Consider what I'm about to tell you, everybody. If Vaporwave was given so much attention and was so popular worldwide, could we create the same method that we used for Vaporwave to create a form of a united partnership towards achieving a goal in our modern society? Everyone, are we realizing that some things were just better in the past and doesn't need to be an 85-mile-an-hour drive all the way up to modernism? In many aspects, the sine non qua of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 17, is partnership to make the goals more attainable. Everybody, we've already got a model for this partnership. Now it's our turn. It's your turn, each and every one of you, to actually make it happen. So, if there's one thing I managed to bring to all of you here at the table tonight, is that the 80s is back. It's here, and along with it, it has brought a new model for how pop culture and technology can collaborate and innovate and popularize ideas to create a form of cooperation towards achieving a goal. Vaporwave is here, everybody, and it's going to be here for a while. It started it all, and the road only goes north from here. Or, as our good friend Doc Brown from Back to the Future would say, where we're going, we don't need roads. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, arigato, and I hope your night is totally tubular.